You're starting at the wrong end of the story if you think, I want to be a writer, what can I write on? No, that's not how it works. There have to be certain things inside you dying to get out. It's almost like giving birth to a child. When that child is ready to be born, it will come out of you whether you like it or not. I started writing at the tender age of 42, right? When most people are thinking of going to Raymond's at this point, I thought I'd start writing a book. Hi there, my name is Ashok Ferrey. I'm a writer in Sri Lanka. I do a couple of other things as well as writing. I design and build houses. I lecture at the Columbus School of Architecture. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a mathematician also. I was a mathematician, no longer. Oh gosh, that's a really difficult question. It's like, I think, asking a mother to choose between her children. I think you always have a bit of a soft spot for your firstborn. That would be Called Pretty People, a book called Called Pretty People. And the next book is a very dark one called The Professional. It's a bit of a naughty book, but perhaps, I don't know, perhaps I could say that that's actually my favorite because it's the most personal. It tries to dig deep. It's not entirely my story, but it tries to dig deep. The books I really loved as a child were books by this guy called Saki, S-A-K-I. The reason I liked those stories was they were funny, hugely funny, but very naughty, very dark. Do you know, I have to backtrack to when I was very young, and it was a book given to my sister called Once Long Ago. It had about 70 or 80 stories from all over the world, one from each country. And there again, what I liked about that was each story was, as I said, gave me some perhaps imagined or fictitious idea of that country. Currently I'm reading, because I'm actually desperate, I'm reading for the second time Anthony Trollope. I'm going through his works, and there's a book called Can You Forgive Her? He's a much underrated writer. They're massive books, massive, because he wrote to the papers. It's very subtle, and it takes you down different routes. It's kind of rather like a modern day television series. Always my favorite characters are the ones who are funny, but who have a dark side to them. In the Saki short stories, there's a guy called Clovis, who's completely irreverent, but he's very clever and he's always trapping his aunties into various things. There's Clovis. Evelyn Waugh has characters. There are many, or in P.G. Wodehouse, there's Bertie Wooster. I love Sherlock Holmes because there's something brutal and dark about Sherlock Holmes. He was a drug addict. That is not to say I'm a drug addict, but he used to take cocaine recreationally and play the violin. But he had this dark side to him, you know? So those are always my favorite characters in any book. I think there's a whole bunch of them, which I can guarantee you have never heard of them, because they are all mid-century, mid-20th century modern writers, as I call them. Graham Greene, Muriel Spark, and then the other ones, Evelyn Waugh, P.G. Wodehouse, if you want another name in there. They're people who wrote with a light touch. They lived their life lightly, so that a reader can read a book on many levels. You can read the light level, and later, 20 years later, you can go back to that book and read about the heavy level, but you don't advertise that heaviness. Oh God, that's a joke. That's a complete joke, because I don't sit there and write every day. Maybe because I'm a little fortunate and I have other disciplines I can bury myself in. So when I finish a book, I start designing a house, so I can lose myself. And then there's my personal training or the lectures or this or that I can bury myself in. So that gives me time to recharge my batteries. So generally, once I finish a book, it's at least 2 years before I think of sitting down to the next book. So what happens when that book is ready to be written? It comes out really quickly. I will be criticized for saying this, but this is not perhaps how most writers should do their work. At the moment, I haven't written anything for 3 to 4 years, because I know that even if I don't consciously sit there, there are things inside me working. I have a vague idea of where I want to go with the next book, but till it's ready to come out, I will not sit down. I never thought of writing books. They were inside me. As I said, I was a mathematician, then I was a builder. I came back to Sri Lanka, I was designing houses, and then what happened was my father got cancer, and I'd take him in a tuk-tuk to Maharagama three times a week, bring him back, put him on the bed, he'd collapse on the bed, and it was a very stressful time for me. I'll never forget, I went into the next room and there was a Rahima's exercise book and a pencil, and I literally sat down and wrote that very first book. I don't have a copy of it here because there are no more books of it in the country at the moment, called Pretty People. The very first book, first story called The Perfect House. I wrote that story in half an hour flat. And I didn't have to change a thing. It went to the printers as I'm still today. Today, it is the story I wrote then in that half hour. So I think that story was dying to be born. That is how it works. Ooh, Sri Lankan food, always. And my all-time favorite is yellow rice and chicken curry and batu pahi and maybe a bandaka. But in between, I love a good karola tel dala with parippu and white rice and a pulsam ball. I think that also has to be my all-time favorite. So I love my food, so I eat a lot. Anyway. If you think that you're going to go off to some desert island and sit there and write a book, boy, are you wrong. That is not how life works. So you have to train yourself to zone out. A lot of my work is done in the gym while I'm pumping iron, which is the world's most boring thing to do. My mind is concentrating on the writing, or while I'm on a journey, in a train or in a bus or whatever. You have to learn to be writing all the time. And the way you do that is to learn to tap into your subconscious, because it's your subconscious that's doing all the work, not your conscious mind. I love him. Because I think if you ask any writer, they don't go to literary festivals to talk about their book. They go to enjoy themselves, get drunk and have a great time, great parties. So on that score, we writers yearn to be invited to literary festivals. If there's any organizer out there, listen to me. And we don't go there to plug our books, not at all. If the book has some kind of resonance, that's definitely a side effect of the whole thing. So there's very little fun in life, so you go for the parties. I'm sorry to tell you this, you go for the parties. Oh, unquestionably the best one is the Jaipur Festival. It is the world's most lavish festival, and you know what? It's all free. And you have the world's best characters. I remember listening to the Dalai Lama. Who else? I mean, the world's greatest writers, the world's greatest people come there. That's why it's the best festival. Awards. Is that a joke? I have been shortlisted so many times for so many prizes. I have never won a thing. So for the Gratian Prize, I've been shortlisted, I think, 4 times, maybe 5. I've lost count. The DSC Prize, nominated for the DSC Prize. Just about a couple of months back, I got nominated for the Jeffrey Barmer Award. Do you think I'm going to win it? Like hell. I think that is my lot in life, to be the most nominated person in history, but who has never won a thing. As I keep saying, and nobody repeats me when I say it, when I'm introduced, I always say, please say, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Just remember that. Oh, lots over the years. I think the worst one was, and I feel I can say it today, is that I think your biceps are better than your writing. And since my biceps are now completely down, I haven't been to a gym for about 2 months, I can happily say this. I try and, when I write a book, I try and have many layers in there. So this book has two main layers. On the surface, it's about my builder's life in England under Mrs. Thatcher in the 1980s. The reason I thought I'd deal with that is because I don't think there was a single other Asian builder in South London at the time. I was called the Packy. There was my friend who was the carpenter. He was Irish. So we were called the Packy and the Paddy. It was like a pop group, yeah? So it's ostensibly about that. Underneath, because it's one of the serious books, one of the dark, serious books, underneath it's about grief. My mother passed away right towards the end of me writing that book. And it was about me dealing with grief. And I thought to myself, hell, I'm not special. Everyone deals with grief. Every person will at one point in their life have to deal with the death in the family. How do you do it? You know, it's one of those subjects that people are uncomfortable about writing. And I've tried to put it there as honestly as I can. So on the surface, it's about this builder's life in London. Underneath, it's about grief.